Here's a family that has some leaves that are pretty similar to what we've seen before. We've got pinnate venation, serrate margins, even a good indication of what might be considered doubly serrate here. So you can see bigger teeth, big teeth made up of little teeth. This is not in that other family, Betulaceae. This is in a different family, Ulmaceae, and this is the genus Ulmus or elm. So you can see the similarity between the genus name Ulmus and the common name elm, and that's their leaves right here. One of the features you might look for when you're identifying these as separate from Betulaceae is that they often have this kind of asymmetrical leaf base. I don't know if it's coming across so well. Let me try to draw you one here. All right, so the mid vein there, and then overall kind of an ovate shape. And what you sometimes get, I'm not drawing this per perspective, this is actually like an asymmetrical base. So the perpendicular line would be something more like this, and the actual line of those leaf bases is deeper on one end than the other. So kind of an asymmetrical result of just sort of the development of these leaves makes them grow a little bit differently in one dimension than another. Could be something that's helpful to look out for. Maybe one, I think you kind of learn to recognize the leaves of this plant group. Flowers kind of similar to what we saw in the maples, but they would be different in having alternate phyllotaxis here, and of course different kinds of leaves. And so flowers, these are bisexual flowers on long pedicels, and it's really the fruits that help you identify this group, I'd say. So once you get to fruits in the elms, this is their fruit type is a samara, not a schizocarp. This is one samara per flower, just one seed inside, and then kind of a ring, flattened ring of flat tissue around that to help it disperse. Really distinctive fruit type. So if you recognize that, you'll be off to the races. Another one that's very similar to the elms, and actually for a long time was classified with them as this genus here, Celtis, or the hackberry. Recent classifications have put this a lot more distantly related to the elms. This is actually in a family Cannabaceae, which is where cannabis or marijuana is currently classified. So a little bit different disposition here. So very similar leaves to what we just saw. Maybe not quite so prominently pinnately veined, a little bit, maybe emphasizing these basal veins, but overall pinnately veined, serrate margins, asymmetrical bases, pretty common, nicely illustrated here. This is a good illustration of the asymmetrical leaf base. And then one vegetative feature, I don't often highlight the trunk characteristics or the bark, but this is one where the bark can be very helpful. The hackberries make this warty bark, sometimes just plain warts and sometimes ridges of warts like this one. If you know what you're looking out for, pretty good other characteristic to look for as you're identifying these. Single flowers, so they're pretty early in the season, they produce flowers. This is kind of a cluster of flowers and very young leaves being formed, and you can see the flowers are already just about ready to go at this early stage. It's a early flower that you maybe overlook this part of the process. And then later, a little bit later here in development, this is a female portion being receptive of these big stigmas. So another case of wind pollination, collecting wind-borne pollen on those big stigmas and highlighting this solitary flower. So a single flower coming out of this leaf axil is going to develop into one of these characteristic hackberries. So hackberry is technically here a drupe, hack drupes. Take on a nice color, and then the arrangement of one of those per leaf axil is pretty helpful to know what you're looking at there. Another kind of odd characteristic that really does help identify this kind of plant is the fact that hackberries tend to be colonized really reliably by this bug here. This is a psyllid bug, and it produces what we call a gall. So gall is G-A-L-L, and gall is sort of like a tumor on a plant that is induced by an insect. So the insect, the mother insect, lays an egg on the developing leaf, It also basically kind of stings it, so it grows into this tumor wart kind of thing. And the egg hatches into a larva that lives inside of that little tumor. And the larva has food, it has protection from the outside, it's not visible to predators, and it can do its portion of the life cycle pretty safely inside of there. And this is, like I said, this is pretty reliable. Just about every hackberry I ever encounter during the summer months has this kind of growth on it. Not a huge, it's not going to necessarily kill the hackberry tree. It's a little bit of a nutrient expenditure for them to make this extra growth. But overall, the hackberries are, they're okay at the end of this process.